come back to me. But he was a submarine captain in the First World War, and his whole life was submarines in between the two world wars. And he was not ready that the war started so early. He felt that he needed 2 more years to really bring his um, fleet, U-boat fleet, to what it should be. But Hitler, well, we know the history, invaded Poland and so on.
Yeah.
So, what the hell's his name? This is old age. I should know. Anyways, so he told his U-boats remaining to surrender, and we went from our base about 24 hours steaming, and we got to a certain point, and there were 2 U-boats that awaited us.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, a frigate, we were higher than the U-boat, so we could look down. And that's the first time I saw the enemy. The Army and meet, but the Air Force and the Navy, we don't see the enemy very rarely. But in this case, if it was rough on the surface, the U-boats, hats off to the conditions were god awful. The food would just go rancid. The food was putrid. They would sweat. They couldn't wash. In the North Atlantic, they had to wear winter clothing, in January to March, very rough conditions.
Heavy clothing.
20-foot high waves, and the submarine would plow through that when they were on the surface. Awful conditions. And as the war progressed, we got better at our job, and we had small carriers in the convoys with aircraft, so they would spot submarines before we would, and they would relay that to us, and then we would attack, and so on. So, but hats off. But they lost about 80% of the U-boats, 80% of their U-boats, and 75% of their crew. About 28,000 in submarine crews, and they lost about 24,000. That's the highest rate of losses in any service in any country. Normally you get 10, 20, 30%, about 70, 75 when you say you've trained all these people.
How did it happen then? How that happened?
Well, we sunk them.
Oh.
Well, the odd collision and so on, but generally, there's a captain in the Royal Navy with his group of ships. They sank 23 U-boats. That's the tops. But, the Canadian Navy, we sunk 33 U-boats. That's how they were lost. Well, that's always the odd one, bad navigation condition. But I have a friend of mine, well, he only became a friend because I only got to know him after the war. But his ship attacked us on a U-boat, and the U-boat after a while came up to the surface, and tried to save the U-boat, but they couldn't, but they saved everybody on board. And this chap, Canadian, because it was a Canadian corvette, became very friendly with the second in command. My friend was second in command, and his opposite number in the submarine was also the executive officer. My friend was already a lawyer, but the other one, after he left the Kriegsmarine, became a doctor, and they kept
Connections.
attached. My friend visited him in Germany. The German came over and visited him. But it's quite a story, a human story, to the effect that they could have sunk them.
Yeah.
And instead of that, they brought everybody on board, looked after them till they